Welcome back to the Revenge Chronicles, where betrayal meets justice and every story ends with the sweetest payback. To our loyal subscribers, thank you for riding with us. And to those who are new here, this is your home for the most satisfying revenge tales you'll ever hear. Make sure to hit that subscribe button and turn on the notification bell so you never miss a story where karma comes knocking. Now let's dive into today's tale. The grocery store was always buzzing on Saturday mornings. Families shopped for the week, couples argued over brands, and children begged for candy near the registers. But amid the chaos, there was one constant: Harold. Harold was that customer, the one every cashier dreaded, tall, balding, with a permanent scowl etched across his face. Harold thrived on making people feel small, and his favorite target, Ella, the 24-year-old cashier at register. For Ella wasn't flashy. She was polite, soft-spoken, and always smiling, even when customers were rude. She needed the job. Her mother was ill, bills piled up at home, and she worked double shifts to cover the expenses. She had learned to take insults and keep her head down, but Harold made it personal. Every Saturday, he'd march into the store with a list of overpriced items, slam them onto the conveyor belt, and sneer at Ella. "You're too slow. Do they hire just anyone these days?" He'd say loudly enough for other customers to hear. When Ella politely asked if he had a store membership card, he'd roll his eyes. "If you weren't so dense, you'd remember by now." Sometimes he'd hold up the line by deliberately pulling out pennies and nickels to pay, watching Ella squirm as the queue behind him grew restless. And if Ella dared to defend herself, Harold would demand a manager and threaten to get her fired. Week after week, month after month, Ella endured. Her co-workers whispered about Harold, trading horror stories of his nastiness, but no one received it as badly as Ella. It was almost as if he enjoyed seeing her on edge. One evening, after yet another brutal encounter with Harold, Ella walked home in tears. But as she passed the glowing windows of a local college, something inside her shifted. Why was she letting men like Harold dictate her life? She made a choice. Ella applied for evening classes in business management, juggling her job during the day and studies at night. Sleep became a luxury, but she pressed on. Every insult Harold spat only fueled her determination. 2 years later, life had changed. Ella graduated top of her class and was promoted to assistant manager at the store. It wasn't glamorous, but it was progress. Her confidence grew, her voice strengthened, and her co-workers noticed. And Harold? He hadn't changed one bit. Still rude, still arrogant, still tormenting cashiers, though now. He avoided Ella's line since she rarely worked the register, but fate wasn't finished yet. Another year passed. The store's regional director announced a restructuring. The current manager was retiring, and a new one would be chosen from within. Ella, armed with her degree, work ethic, and glowing reputation, was the obvious choice. At 27, Ella became the youngest manager the store had ever had. The following Saturday, Harold walked in as usual, his cart overflowing with items. He sneered at a nervous young cashier fumbling with change. "Useless," he barked. "They should fire you on the spot." But this time a voice cut through the noise. Strong, calm, authoritative. "Is there a problem here, sir?" Harold turned and froze. Standing in front of him, wearing the crisp black blazer of authority, was Ella, not the timid cashier he once mocked, not the girl who bowed under his cruelty. This was Ella, the manager. Harold scoffed. "You? Manager? What a joke." Ella's eyes didn't flinch. "I'll have to ask you to treat my staff with respect. If you can't, you'll need to leave." The store grew quiet. Customers and employees alike paused, watching the confrontation unfold. Harold puffed up his chest, his voice dripping with disdain. "You think you can ban me? I've shopped here for years. You're nothing." Ella's lips curved into the faintest smile. She had waited years for this. "You're right, Harold. I was nothing to you, just a cashier you could insult, but I'm not that person anymore. And as manager, I have every right to protect my staff from abusive customers. Consider this your last visit." The silence broke into murmurs. Employees smirked. Customers whispered in approval. Harold's face turned crimson. He stuttered, grasping for words, but none came. Ella gestured to security, who calmly escorted him out, his protests fading into the distance. For the first time, Harold was powerless. Ella stood tall, her staff clapping quietly behind her. It wasn't just about Harold anymore, it was about every insult, every sleepless night, every moment she doubted herself. This was her victory. Weeks passed. Without Harold's toxic presence, the store atmosphere improved dramatically. Cashiers smiled more, customers lingered longer, and morale soared. Ella had turned her pain into power, and her staff adored her for it. As for Harold, he tried shopping at other stores, but his reputation preceded him. Word spread fast in the small town. Managers elsewhere also refused to tolerate his behavior. In the end, Harold was forced to curb his cruelty, his arrogance dismantled piece by piece, and Ella, she thrived. Her journey from cashier to manager became a story whispered with admiration among employees. She became a mentor, encouraging others to rise above the people who tried to break them. And every Saturday morning, as sunlight spilled into the store, Ella smiled, no longer dreading Harold's presence, but savoring the satisfaction that revenge served with dignity and power was hers. Justice wasn't loud, it was decisive, and Ella had delivered it perfectly. Don't forget to subscribe and hit the bell, because here at the Revenge Chronicles, there's always another story waiting to be told. Until next time.